In the modern era of hyper-specialized football, the true unicorns aren't the luxury playmakers or the isolated goal scorers. They are the ultimate problem solvers. For years, Federico Valverde was Real Madrid's best-kept secret, a tireless engine operating in the shadows of legends, quietly earning trust through pure tactical bravery. Today, the young Uruguayan who once sacrificed himself for the collective has become the undisputed driver of the biggest club in the world. And 2026 is the year the football world finally runs out of reasons to deny him the Ballon d'Or. But here is what makes this story different from every other player rise you have ever watched. Valverde didn't get here by being given a platform. He didn't get here by being handed a system built around him. He got here by making himself completely impossible to ignore, in a squad containing some of the most expensive, celebrated footballers on the planet. And then, in 8 days, in March 2026, he did something that put his name alongside a Real Madrid legend from 1968. What he did in those 8 days, we will get to. And trust me, it is worth the wait. Welcome to Cyberboot. If you are new here, subscribe right now. This is exactly what we make. Deep, tactical, fearless football content. Let's go. Every great story has a beginning that nobody pays attention to at the time. For Valverde, that beginning was a loan spell at Deportivo La Coruña in the 2017-18 season. 24 La Liga appearances. Quietly building, quietly learning. A teenager developing in relative anonymity. Nobody outside of Uruguay and the Real Madrid Academy was watching particularly closely. But the education was happening. And the player that emerged from that spell was already something different. Not a playmaker in the traditional sense. Not a destroyer in the traditional sense. Something in between. Something harder to define. Something that, at the time, football didn't quite have a label for. Then he returned to Madrid. And the real challenge began. Because breaking into the Real Madrid first team in this era was not just difficult, it was, by any reasonable assessment, nearly impossible. Let's set the scene properly. Because context here is everything. When Valverde began pushing for a first-team place at Real Madrid, the midfield he was trying to break into was perhaps the greatest in the history of club football. Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Casemiro, 3 consecutive UEFA Champions League titles. A partnership so perfectly balanced, so deeply understood between 3 individuals, that most coaches would simply have accepted that no fourth player could meaningfully disrupt it. Kroos controlled the tempo. Modric manipulated space and created magic in the pockets between lines. Casemiro protected and screened with elite defensive intelligence. The question for Valverde was not just, can I get into this team? The question was, what can I offer that these 3 already legendary players cannot? And Zinedine Zidane, one of the most perceptive tactical minds in the history of the game, saw the answer before anyone else did. Explosive verticality, immense recovery speed. The ability to transition from defense to attack in seconds, covering distances that neither Kroos nor Modric were built to cover at the pace required. Zidane didn't ask Valverde to be better than the existing 3. He asked him to be different, to fill the specific gap that even 3 legends couldn't cover. And Valverde delivered, every single time he was asked. Now here's the moment that tells you everything you need to know about Federico Valverde. Not a goal, not an assist, not a man of the match performance, a red card. January 12th, 2020, the Supercopa de España final against Atletico Madrid in Jeddah. The match is in the 115th minute of extra time. The score is level. An Atletico Madrid forward breaks through on a clear one-on-one toward Thibaut Courtois. The goal is open. The chance is almost certain. And Valverde, coming from behind, makes a decision in a fraction of a second that most players at his age and experience level simply would not make. He executes a deliberate, cynical tackle from behind at just outside the penalty area. The result? A straight red card. Valverde's night is over, but Real Madrid survive, win on penalties, lift the trophy. Now think about what that moment reveals. This is a young player, not yet established, not yet certain of his place, who makes a split-second calculation that his individual sacrifice is worth the collective benefit. No hesitation, no self-preservation, just a cold, elite understanding of what the moment required. Zidane didn't criticize him, he publicly defended it. He recognized it not as desperation, but as intelligence. As Valverde understanding the game at a level that most players take a decade longer to reach. That foul told you exactly who Federico Valverde was going to become. Here is what makes Valverde genuinely unique in modern football. He cannot be labeled. In the defensive phase, he is a destructive force, tracking opposing runs, protecting the right back, covering upwards of 11 kilometers in high-intensity matches. Pure defensive engine work that most attacking players simply refuse to do. In transition, he transforms into something terrifying. An elite ball carrier capable of driving 30 to 40 meters up the pitch in seconds. The ability to go from defending deep to arriving in the opponent's final third before they have reorganized. In the attacking phase, he is a hybrid. A late arriving box threat, a winger, a goal scorer, possessing one of the most lethal low backlift strikes in European football. Now here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. What position would you put Federico Valverde in on your team sheet? Number 8, number 10, right midfielder, false 9? Because the honest answer is that he defies every box you try to put him in. And that is precisely why he is so valuable. Tell me your answer below. I genuinely want to read your thinking on this. Carlo Ancelotti is one of the most decorated managers in football history. He does not make bold public predictions about individual players lightly. So when Ancelotti, during the 2022-23 season, famously declared that he would tear up his coaching license if Valverde did not score at least 10 goals that season, the football world paid attention. This was not just a vote of confidence. This was a tactical declaration. Ancelotti was publicly announcing that he had built a system, an asymmetrical system, specifically designed to unlock Valverde's attacking ceiling. Not just to use him as an engine, not just to use him as a defensive screen, but to put him in positions where his goal-scoring ability would become a genuine weapon. Valverde finished that season with 12 goals, 2 more than the prediction. In an era where Karim Benzema, Vinicius Jr., and Rodrygo were the headline attackers, Valverde quietly became one of the most efficient goal-scoring midfielders in Europe, not despite his defensive responsibilities alongside them. That combination, elite defensive work rate plus double-digit goals, is extraordinarily rare at the highest level. And Ancelotti saw it coming before the rest of the world was ready to accept it. Now we arrive at the moment this whole video has been building toward. March 2026. Real Madrid are navigating a genuine crisis. Kylian Mbappé, injured. Jude Bellingham, injured. Rodrygo, injured. 3 of the most expensive celebrated attacking players in world football, simultaneously unavailable. For most clubs, this is where the season starts to unravel. This is where the depth of a squad is genuinely tested. This is where the pressure exposes whoever is left standing. And the player left standing, the player who stepped into the void, was Federico Valverde. What followed over 8 days was one of the most extraordinary individual stretches of performance in Real Madrid's recent history. 5 goals, 3 matches, 8 days. Let me take you through each one. March 6, 2026. Real Madrid against Celta Vigo in La Liga. Madrid had lost 2 consecutive games. The pressure was immense. Barcelona were 1 point ahead. The title race was on a knife edge. In the 94th minute, stoppage time, the game in the balance, Valverde struck from outside the box. The winner. The 2-game losing streak ended. The gap to Barcelona cut to 1 point. That single goal in that specific moment, under that particular pressure, was the act of a player who does not feel the weight of big moments. It was the act of a player who feeds on them, but that was just the beginning. 5 days later, March 11th, 2026, the Champions League round of 16 at the Bernabeu. Opponents, Manchester City. Valverde scored a hat-trick in the Champions League against Manchester City in a 3-0 win. The goals were not tap-ins. They were not penalty box scrambles. A direct run onto a goalkeeper pass finished clinically. A powerful left-footed strike, a composed volley that required technical precision under pressure. His pass accuracy across the 90 minutes, 89.4%. This was not a player riding his luck. This was a complete performance, tactical, technical, physical, psychological, at the highest possible level. And then, 3 days later, March 14th, 2026, La Liga, against Elche, a heavy free kick that led directly to a rebound goal. Then a curling right-footed effort after disguising a left-footed fake. 3 matches, 5 goals total, in 8 days. And in doing so, Valverde matched a record set by Ferenc Puskás in 1968. A Real Madrid midfielder scoring a European hat-trick. Let me ask you this, and I want a serious answer in the comments. Before March 2026, was Valverde in your personal top 5 midfielders in the world? And has this 8-day stretch changed your answer? Drop it below. Let's see how the Cyberboot community rates him. Here is the most compelling evidence of Valverde's greatness. It is not the goals. It is not the statistics. It is the fact that every manager who has worked with him has reached the exact same conclusion. Zidane, Ancelotti, Xabi Alonso, and now Álvaro Arbeloa, who took over on January 12th, 2026, 4 completely different coaches, 4 different tactical philosophies. All of them have built their system around the same player. Zidane saw the tactical sacrifice and the vertical threat. Ancelotti weaponized the attacking output and built the asymmetrical system around his engine. Xabi Alonso kept him at the absolute core during a turbulent period in late 2025 and early 2026. And Arbeloa, following the Manchester City hat-trick masterclass, called Valverde the Juanito of the 21st century. That comparison, for anyone unfamiliar with Real Madrid's history, is one of the most profound compliments the club can pay. Juanito represented ultimate fighting spirit, ultimate emotional leadership, the willingness to give everything, including your own physical safety, for the badge. Arbeloa was not just praising a footballer. He was acknowledging a legacy in the making. When 4 different managers across multiple tactical eras independently arrive at the same conclusion about one player, that is not coincidence. That is greatness. Let's address the biggest question directly. Can Federico Valverde win the Ballon d'Or? The history of midfielders winning the award is not encouraging. It is a rare event. When it happens, as it did with Rodri in 2024, it requires a perfect storm. Deep runs in major competitions, defining clutch moments in the biggest games, major trophies at club level, international impact. Now, let's look at what Valverde is building. At club level, 5 goals in 8 days during an injury crisis, a Champions League hat-trick against Manchester City, a La Liga title race where his stoppage-time winner cut the gap to 1 point. At international level, Uruguay have already secured qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, confirmed on September 5th, 2025, with a 3-0 win over Peru. In the post-Suarez, post-Cavani era of Uruguayan football, Valverde is the undisputed star of the national team. His crucial goal in a World Cup qualifying draw against Brazil underlined that status. And here is why the World Cup matters specifically for the Ballon d'Or. At international level, where systems are less refined, where the quality of teammates drops significantly, where chaos is more common than coordination, a midfielder who can single-handedly dictate all 3 phases of play becomes the most valuable player on the pitch. If Real Madrid win La Liga or the Champions League, and if Uruguay make a deep run at the 2026 World Cup with Valverde as the driving force, the case becomes not just compelling, but almost undeniable. The football world has been slow to fully recognize him. The football world is running out of time to keep looking away. Let's step back and look at the full picture. Because what makes Valverde genuinely different from the other elite midfielders of his generation is not any single quality. It is the combination. He covers 11 kilometers in high-intensity matches. Defensive work rate at the level of a pure defensive midfielder. He carries the ball 30 to 40 meters in transition. Verticality at the level of an elite number 8. He scores goals with both feet, from range, under pressure, finishing at the level of an attacking midfielder. He makes split-second tactical sacrifices. Intelligence at the level of the game's most experienced players. Most elite players are extraordinary in 1 or 2 of these areas. Valverde operates at elite level in all of them, simultaneously, in the same match. And he does it in the biggest matches, against the biggest clubs, under the most scrutiny. The 8 days in March 2026 did not create a new player. They revealed one that had been building for nearly a decade. So here's the verdict on Federico Valverde. He is no longer the best-kept secret at Real Madrid. He is no longer the engine in the shadows. He is no longer the player that casual fans overlook while watching Mbappé and Vinicius get the headlines. He is the most complete midfielder on the planet. The player who sacrificed himself with a red card in a cup final at 21 is the same player scoring Champions League hat-tricks against Manchester City at 27. The lone player at Deportivo La Coruña is the player being compared to Juanito by his own manager. The quiet Uruguayan who broke into an impossible midfield trio is now the undisputed driver of the biggest club in the world. Zidane saw it first. Ancelotti developed it. Arbeloa is benefiting from it. And in 2026, with the World Cup coming and a title race burning, the rest of the world is finally about to understand it fully. One final question before I let you go, and this one I want a proper, detailed answer on. Does Federico Valverde deserve the 2026 Ballon d'Or? Not, is he a good player? We all know that. Not, has he had a good season? The numbers confirm it. The real question, is the football world ready to give the award to a player who doesn't fit the traditional Ballon d'Or profile? A player who defends and attacks? A player who covers and creates? A player who leads without being the loudest voice in the room? Make your case in the comments. Argue for him. Argue against him. Give me a name you think deserves it more, and tell me why. Because that is the Cyber Boot comment section. Real thinking, real debate, not just reactions. And if this video gave you a new appreciation for what Valverde is doing, subscribe to Cyber Boot right now.